Welcome back to Professor Ray Huixin Wu Educational Video 3, Control Flow for Engineering Technology. Video 3 introduces the basic of Boolean expression, sequential statements, decision statements, which is if and if else statement, repetition statements are loops, which is for and while loops statements. Before the use of any control flow, we should be familiar with the Boolean operators for decision first. A Boolean type can only be true or false. An expression such as x is greater than 5 is a Boolean expression. The expression evaluates whether the value associated with x is greater than 5. The result of that evaluation is a Boolean. It is either true or false. Hence it is a Boolean expression. For example, if x is equal to 10, then the statement is true, but if x is equal to 3, then the statement is false. A programming program will always have a sequential of statements. The way how sequences are selected to perform certain tasks is known as control flow. Control flow supports sequential statements, decision statements, repetition statements are loops. In order to use Boolean expression, we need to take in consideration the relational and logic operators. Relational operators use the less, greater, and equal operator to compare values. Logical operators use and, her, and not operator to compare values. Statements are executed one after the other in descending order. Selection statements. The first selection statement is if and if else statement. In this statement, if Boolean expression is true, execute all statements in the body. If Boolean expression is false, skip all statements in the body. For example, if we are writing a program to check if a number is positive, we can use the if statement to check if the number is greater or equal to 1. Then, if the statement is true, it will run the lines within the if statement. In this case, it will display the number is positive. And the if statement. Let's take a look in this code. If the input number x is equal to 3, when the program moves to the next line and checks the condition if x is equal or greater than 1, it will return a true and executes what is inside this statement, which is display the number is positive. Now the program ends and move to the next line of the program, which is display x. If the input number x is equal to -2, once the program moves to read the if statement will return a false. If the program detects a false from a statement, it will automatically skip the lines inside of the if statement and moves to next line after the if statement. In this case, it will display the value of x. Let's take a look at the if else statement. For example, if we want to run a program to check if a number is positive, negative, or 0. For this program, we can add 2 more statements to our previous if statement. Then, to check if x is a positive number, the statement is written as if x is greater or equal than 1. If this statement is true, it will display the number is positive. To check if x is a 0, the statement is written as if x is equal to 0. If this statement is true, it will display the number is 0. If x is not greater or equal to 1, neither equal to 0, then the number must be less than 0 or negative. For if else statement, this condition is known as the else condition, which is also the last statement, and it does not need a condition. For this code, if the number x is equal to 3, then the first statement is true. Once a program detects that a statement is true in a if-else statement, it would automatically ignore the rest of the statement within the if-else statement. If the number x is equal to 0, when the program checks the first statement and it returns a false, the program automatically skips the first statement and moves to the next statement. Now, the second statement, which is else if x is equal to 0, the statement returns a true. Then it will read what is inside this statement, which is display, the number is 0. Once it detects a true statement from the tree of the if-else statement, the program will automatically skip the rest of the statements. If the number x is equal to -1, then the first statement is false, and the program will automatically skip what is inside this statement. Now it moves to the second statement. The second statement is also false. The program will automatically skip the lines inside of this statement. Now it moves to the next statement, which is the else statement. If the previous statements before the else statement are false, the program knows that this last statement must be true, and runs the lines within this statement. Remember, when if statement is used, only one condition is checked. When if else statement is used, one condition must be true. Besides selecting which statements to execute, it is also important to repeat a set of statements under some conditions. Both selection and repetition statement are the two most necessary programming statements. While loop is one of the repetition statements. While loop is a top-tested loop pretest. Test the Boolean before running. Test the Boolean before each iteration of the loop. It repeats the statements in a suite while the Boolean is true. If the Boolean expression never changes during the course of the loop will continue forever. For example, if we are writing a program to check if an input integer, x, is equal 0, if x is equal to 0, then count the number that 0 is entered in variable y, otherwise, display y. For this program, variable y is used as a counter. That is the reason the initial value for y is 0. The next line is the while statement. In this line, we want to check if x is equal to 0. If the statement is true, the program will get into the while loop and reads the lines within it. Obviously, if you are inside the while loop, it means that 0 is entered. Then we need to increase the counter y by 1. For this, we just take the previous value of y, which is 0, and add 1, then the new value for y is 1. The second line for this while loop will be entering a new value for x. This new value of x will be checked again at the beginning of the while. If the while statement runs a true, it will run the lines within the while loop. Otherwise, it will end the program and reads the next line. If x is equal to -1, when the program checks the while statement, it will return a false. If the statement is false, the program will skip all the lines within the while loop and move to the line after the while loop, which is display y. Since the value of y was originally set to 0, and it did not change in the program, then the screen display will be 0. On the contrast, if enter x equal to 0, the while statement will be true, and the program will get into the while loop and execute line by line within the while loop. Inside the while loop, the variable of y will be added 1 from the previous value. Then the new value of variable y will be 1. After it, the program will ask to input the value again for x. If the entered value for x is 0 again, at the end of lines within the while loop, the program will check the while statement again. If the statement is true, the while loop goes for a second run and repeat the procedure again. In this second run, the value of y will be added 1 from the previous value, which is 1. Then the new value of variable y will be 2. After it, the program will ask to input a value for x again, if x is 1 now. When the while loop goes for a third run, and it will return a false statement for the while loop. Once the statement is false, the entire while loop is skipped. The program now moves to the next line after the while loop, which is display y. The display value for y will be latest value of y from the while loop, which is 2. Note, if variable x is always 0, or never changes during the course of the loop, the loop will continue forever. This type of loop is also known as infinitive loop. For loops, for loop repeats statement a specific number of times. For loop helps to reduce the number of lines when the same lines are used for several times. For example, we want to write a program where it collects 10 different numbers, add the numbers, and display the sum of them. If we want to write the program in a simple way, to collect the value for each variable, we will need to write 10 input lines, and then add them and display them. Then what will happen if you need 100 values? Are we going to write 100 variable lines? Here where for loop comes to rescue. Since the 10 lines perform the same operation, collect a value as x, then we can put everything into a for loop. For this example we need to create variable sum first with value 0. Now, we can start writing our for loop. The statement in the for loop is the counter. This is the part where we set up the numbers of times that we want to repeat the for loop. In this case, we have y as the counter that starts from 1 and ends in 10. For the first run within the for loop, y is equal to 1. Then the program will ask the user to input a value for variable x. If user enters 3, x will be equal to 3. Then the program moves to the line, sum. Here sum is equal to the previous value for sum, which is 0, and adds the value of x, which is 3. Now, the value of sum is 3. Once the program reaches the last line within the for loop, it will go the beginning of the for loop and repeat the same procedure one more time. For the second run within the for loop, y is equal to 2. Then the program will ask the user to input a value for variable x again. If user enters 5, x will be equal to 5. Now the program moves to the next line, sum. Here sum is equal to the previous value for sum, which is 3, and adds the value of x, which is 5. Now, the value of sum is 8. The for loop will run until y is equal to 10. For this program, the sum value will be the latest sum value. For example, in the third run x equals -1, sum will be equal to 7. For the fourth run if x equals 10, the sum will be 17. For the fifth run, if x equals -6, the sum will be 11. For the sixth run, if x is equal to 2, the sum will be 13. For the seventh run, if x is equal to 4, the sum will be 17. For the eighth run, if x is equal to 10, the sum will be 27. For the 9th run, if x is equal to 8, the sum will be 35. For the 10th run, if x is equal to minus 20, the sum will be 15. When y is equal 10, it will run the lines within the for loop for the last time, and end the for loop. All values within the for loop will be from the last run, which is run 10. After the end of the for loop, the program will continue reading the lines. In this case, it will display the value in variable sum, which is 15. Control flow controls and manipulates the sequence of statements within your program, and it is widely used in programming. The algorithm of sequence, selecting, and repeating statement is the same in any programming language. The difference is the syntax that each language used. Thank you for reviewing this video material. Now you are ready to go to the next video, Video 4, Control Flow in MATLAB.